Hello everyone, welcome to Foreign Affairs Brief. The world was shocked when US President Trump orchestrated the kidnapping plot against Venezuelan President Maduro. Afterwards, Trump gave interviews to several American media outlets. According to a New York Times report on January 8th, Trump granted them a rare and wide-ranging interview that lasted nearly 2 hours. When discussing military actions against Venezuela and the threat of annexing Greenland, Trump made it clear that, in his view, he could do it, and would continue to use America's power to seek benefits and political hegemony. Trump declared that the United States would control Venezuela according to his wishes, possibly for many years, and at the same time he was committed to acquiring ownership of Greenland. He said Europe must be reorganized because without American support it is useless. He was also completely candid, bluntly stating that he is not bound by any international laws or constraints of balance. When asked whether there were any limits to using American military power, how did he answer? He said there is indeed one limitation, and that is his own morals, his own thoughts. That is the only thing that can stop him. He doesn't need international law, even though he doesn't want to hurt people. Reports and commentary said that this is the most straightforward expression of Trump's worldview so far. When it comes to conflicts of national interest, only national strength is the deciding factor. In Trump's view, past American presidents were too cautious when exercising American power. He is critical of the post-World War II order that America helped establish. He believes that these norms are an unnecessary burden. After the US kidnapped Maduro, many Western politicians jumped out to link this to China and Russia, saying that what Trump did sets a dangerous precedent or could be imitated by China and Russia. When he heard this question, Trump just shrugged his shoulders and didn't care. He said the situation between the US and China or Russia is different. China and Russia do not face the same challenges as the US, such as drugs and illegal immigration from neighboring countries. When it came to discussing the Taiwan Strait, Trump said that China insists that Taiwan is a part of China, so what they want to do depends on them. He said Xi Jinping believes that Taiwan is a part of China, so what does he want to do? That's his freedom, but I have already expressed to him that if he does that, I will be very unhappy, and I don't think he will do it. I hope he won't do it. Maybe he will do it after we change presidents, but I think as long as I am president, he won't do it. After the interview, on January 19th, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning responded at a regular press conference, stating Taiwan is an inseparable part of China's territory. The Taiwan issue is purely China's internal affair. Resolving it is for the Chinese people themselves, not subject to external interference. Seeing Trump contact another country's president, some on Taiwan Island developed a persecution complex. According to a South China Morning Post report, the US military's decapitation operations intensified concerns among certain people on Taiwan Island. They worry the mainland might one day launch a similar operation. Recently, a laughable proposal in Taiwan's political circles reflects authorities' genuine concern about the PLA carrying out such actions. At the New Year's start, Taiwan's Lai Ching-te, via legislator Lin Yijin, proposed on January 2nd to amend the act governing relations between the people of the Taiwan area and the mainland area, known as the Cross-Strait Act. They want to change it to the Act governing relations between Taiwan and the People's Republic of China, and also delete the original text in Article 1 that refers to before national unification. This proposal received endorsements from over 20 fellow party legislators. On January 3rd, Lin Rujin even wrote on social media saying that Taiwan and China, one on each side, are not just slogans. The concept that the two sides of the strait belong to two different countries is, in itself, basic international common sense. However, by Monday, that is January 15th, Lin Rujin quietly withdrew the related proposal, which led to ridicule from both the Kuomintang and the Taiwan People's Party. Kuomintang legislator Xu Qiaoxin speculated that this was because they were scared by what happened in Venezuela, referring to when US President Trump ordered an attack on Venezuela and the arrest of President Maduro. In Taiwan, there has been ongoing debate about whether Beijing might take a page from the US approach. At that time, Lai's people were involved. Amending the law to change the Cross-Strait Act into a two-state act would actually give the mainland legitimate grounds to take action. Therefore, some speculate that it was Lai Ching-te who ordered the withdrawal of the proposal. To sum up simply, first, Trump is becoming more and more blunt, which reveals the true nature of American hegemony. People around the world who still have expectations for American politicians should wake up. Second, after hearing Trump's comments, the authorities in Taiwan are likely to feel even more anxious about the situation in the Taiwan Strait. After the United States squeezed Venezuela's oil dry, some analysts interpreted this move as being aimed at China. However, on January 8th, Bloomberg reported that Chinese refining companies have already started to adjust their strategies, shifting their focus to Canada. Several traders said that since last weekend, after Venezuelan President Maduro was ousted by the United States, there has been a noticeable increase in Chinese inquiries about Canadian crude oil, and energy companies are now evaluating Canada as the closest alternative to Venezuela. These traders did not disclose which specific Canadian oil companies are taking action, only saying that Chinese companies that have long-term contracts to purchase Venezuelan crude will be looking for new suppliers. As the world's largest oil importer, China relies on imports for 70% of its oil consumption. Previously, 80% of Venezuela's oil production was exported to China at extremely low prices. Public opinion generally believes that the U.S. military intervention in Venezuela is aimed at seizing its oil resources with the intention of weakening China. On January 6th, ABC News cited sources saying that the Trump administration has already demanded that Venezuela reduce its ties with China, Russia, Iran, and Cuba, making it clear that Venezuela must establish an exclusive partnership with the U.S. in the oil production sector and prioritize the U.S. in its oil sales business. Crude oil is the unprocessed oil extracted from underground, and it needs to be refined before it can become usable fuels like gasoline and other products. Crude oil is also classified by its density into light crude and heavy crude. As for Venezuela's crude oil, it belongs to the category of high viscosity, high sulfur, high acid heavy oil, which is similar in nature to Canadian heavy oil. This type of crude oil can produce products like naphtha during the refining process. This is extremely valuable. Canada is the world's fifth largest oil producer, but its main oil-producing province, Alberta, is landlocked, so access to ports is limited. In May 2024, after workers began transporting Alberta's oil to ports on the Pacific coast of British Columbia through the expanded Trans Mountain Pipeline, Canada's crude oil exports to China have already seen a significant increase, according to Reuters in May last year. China has already become the largest customer of Canadian oil transported through this pipeline. The latest data from shipping information companies shows that about 64% of the crude oil transported by the Trans Mountain Pipeline goes to China, while most of the rest is shipped to the U.S. West Coast. According to Bloomberg, China's shift toward Canada will be welcomed by Alberta's oil industry and the Canadian government. Early last year, the Trump administration imposed measures on Canada. Since the trade war began, Canada has sought to reduce its economic reliance on the United States. Recently, Canada announced Prime Minister Carney will visit China from the 13th to the 17th. This marks the first visit to China by a Canadian Prime Minister since 2017. During his visit, Carney will discuss trade, energy, agriculture, and international security with the Chinese side. According to data from the Canadian government, the United States accounts for more than 70% of Canada's total foreign trade. In 2023, the United States purchased 97% of Canada's oil exports. Carney said that they hope to double Canada's exports to markets outside the United States within the next 10 years. Wang Jiaxi, a senior researcher at the China Institute of the University of Alberta, believes that the U.S. constantly pressuring Venezuelan President Maduro has made the Canadian government feel uneasy, and Trump has claimed that he will take over Venezuela and control its vast oil reserves. This makes Canada very uneasy because both Venezuela and Alberta province in Canada produce heavy crude oil. According to Bloomberg, At the beginning of this week, about 22 million barrels of Venezuelan crude oil were stranded on tankers near the waters of Malaysia and China. This has provided a certain buffer for refineries in urgent need of raw materials. Major traders estimate that this inventory can only meet China's demand for about 2 months at most. Starting from the second quarter of this year, buyers will turn to Canadian crude oil or other alternative sources. Although Canadian crude oil is more expensive than Venezuelan crude oil, its advantage lies in the fact that it comes from Western Canada. It only takes 17 days for crude oil shipped from Vancouver, British Columbia, to reach Qingdao, China, which is much shorter than the roughly 57-day journey from Amway Bay in Venezuela. In addition, buyers of crude oil from Canada can flexibly choose between small oil tankers or large oil tankers, giving them more shipping capacity options. You could say that in such a rapidly changing international situation, trade business will definitely increase. However, China has a strong ability to withstand risks and also has the strength of the nation as a shield.